Hi guys, welcome to the Fife Property Show. So today we're going to talk about behind the scenes. What happens? It's all very well. Everybody thinks it's like the proverbial duck on the water, but the reality is underneath we're going like that all the time. So on the show today we'll have Richard Cook. Hi Richard, how are you?
Morning Jim, great this morning, how are you?
Absolutely fantastic. And we've got Anne-Marie.
Hi, good morning guys. Morning everyone, I'm fine.
Perfect, bright and breezy, you sound it anyway.
Yep, raring to go.
Fantastic, and we'll say a couple of good morning. Good morning, Joanna, how are you?
Morning,
okay guys, let's get right into this. Behind the scenes. Now, I did a wee open-hearted vlog yesterday, basically saying I'm exhausted. I'm completely exhausted. But when you need to turn it on, you need to turn it on. That's the reality. And I tell you most of the time, guys, it's like you make sure you just work beyond, underneath your full blown out all the time. And then when you need it, just pop up and give it your all and then come back down to that level of excitement. I need to take some of my own advice, by the way.
You do. Definitely.
Because starting at 4:30 in the morning, a couple of mornings this week, and then going to my bed at 12:30 at night, it catches up on you. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
So today's subject then. Morning, Mark. How are you? Thanks for watching. Okay. Behind the scenes, I mean, what does an estate agent actually do for their money? Well, let's be honest. I mean, I often look at other ones, and say, and I know what goes on behind the scenes, but I often look at other estate agents as well and think, well, what do they actually do for their money? And my throwaway comment sometimes as well to some customers, if you're not going with us, you've been as well going on my doorsteps at £99. Because the reality is that's all you're getting from everybody else. But is that factually true? I can only speak for ourselves. So put it on the internet and wait for the phone to ring. That's perhaps how many people see an estate agent's life. And there is undoubtedly some mystery around precisely what agents do beyond putting a property in the market and actually showing people around. Some actually don't show them around at all. They send them to the customer or they pay someone else to go and do it. Well, a big part of the day is being out in the neighbourhood and looking at homes. There's plenty more work than might not be so obvious. But like a swan gliding majestically across the lake, thank you, I'll take that. There's more to that than might be the case. So it's a lot of action under the surface that keeps things running as smoothly as possible. And this is what we're going to talk about today. To shine a light on all that happens, you're invited, as I said, to come along and ask questions as well. A fly-in-the-wall experience of what actually happens. We should actually do a documentary on this. Like these, we get these camera crews that follow us about. Boy, that would be a big eye opener.
Interesting.
I'd maybe have to quail it down a bit sometimes. But by the time you read this, we've got this article on here anyway, and it talks in if you want to read it, and you can listen to it on the podcast after this as well. And inside the information and prime to choose with confidence estate agent. Basically, it's to give you an idea about what everybody does, so you know who you should be talking to. You know the questions you should be asking if you're an estate agent as well when you've got them in front of you. After all, at the end of the day, when you get several estate agents round, it's an interview process, and you're interviewing somebody for the ideal job. So you should know what questions to really ask them, and what they do, and what results they get as well. But in the meanwhile, let's dive into a typical day of getting the neighbourhood moved about. So the first one I want to talk about, and we've seen behind the scenes there, first one I want to talk about is matchmaking. As well as looking at buyers' motivation, matchmaking also means ensuring that anyone coming to view your home is actually able to buy it.
Yeah.
And when somebody sends in a viewer request in the home that they've seen on the internet, they usually don't end up buying it. Sales often come from listening to the hopes and desires for buyers and learning what lies in the heart of their move. Very often people start looking for one thing and end up choosing something completely different. Is that your experience, Richard?
Yeah, you see that a lot. I mean, even in my own experience, everybody in their own head has an idea of what their ideal home is or what their next move's going to be.
Yeah.
And Anne-Marie, you'll speak to a lot of clients coming through and this is what they're looking for. And once you start to obviously assist them and look in and showing them around places, you begin to establish that maybe this isn't exactly what you needed, or that they accept the fact that they're never going to find exactly what they need, and they're going to have to find something that maybe they're going to have to compromise on. You see it on all these shows on the telly and things as well.
Yeah.
You're never going to find that ideal thing. You need to compromise or then implement to change something into what you want it to be.
Yeah,
so we do see that a lot.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of people, they start looking at one thing and then they realize they're actually now looking at what they don't want.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like a process of elimination before they actually get to their ideal, you know, so that happens a lot. They don't know what they're looking for in the beginning. So we need to listen to what they're saying and to help them. Yeah.
From a buyer and a seller's aspect, you need to listen to what they want and help them get to where they're wanting to be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is it often the case that you see, you know, somebody comes along, because I find that as well. They come along and then it's like you think you've got their perfect property and you say, let's go in, let's have a look. And then they go, I don't like that, I don't like that, I don't like that, I don't like that. And you kind of think to yourself, okay, I'll take a note of that and then I'll put that in your notes and then we'll talk about it. And then the next minute, they phone about exactly the same thing on another property. And I was like, wait a minute, you said you didn't want that.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's made the difference here? And it's trying to hone in on that and actually get that out of a buyer, exactly what's going to tick their boxes to get all their ducks in a row, to get them over the line and get them to actually buy something.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that your experience, Anne-Marie?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know, there's people that I take out, and sometimes it's the same people, and I've taken that same couple, say for example, to sort of maybe 5 or 6 different properties, and in the end what they end up buying was what they first saw in the beginning, you know.
Oh my goodness, that's like shopping.
With everything they didn't want, and that's what they've actually fallen in love with, you know. So sometimes you just have to go with it, and you know, it's it's a funny one. You need to constantly be on point, listening, and and try not to be too try not to sort of put them off too much, or you know, if they're saying anything negative, just let them say what they need, you know, because
try not to be too judgmental. You know, that's the difficulty, because we're often it's like everybody sees the same situation, but we all wear different glasses, if that makes sense. You know, and we see it all in different ways. So it's understanding the person's needs in order to deliver the result they want. That's ultimately what we are trying to achieve when we're in the matchmaking process.
Sometimes I think as well, it's good to try and try and get into their mindset as well, because sometimes they could give you all these requirements and you could find a property that ticks all the boxes, and they walk in and they're like, I feel it, it's not for me. So it's getting onto their level about where they want to be and how they're going to feel about a certain type of property as well, and getting to know a person. Like you say, it's listening is key, Anne-Marie, and you're right about that.
I mean, typical moving stories include simplifying a commute, needing more space, wanting to downsize, changing schools for work, changing for schools or work, finding a permanent solution to working from home, or having somewhere secure to park a prized new car. I mean, I have that.
That's the big thing,
people still waiting, and the person I'm thinking of has actually waited 3 years because they still don't have the perfect garage for their cars. And this guy's they'll wait. I've got to say, I've seen his cars, and it's like, wow. I've never been a guy that actually goes, oh, that car, I love that, Ferraris and all the rest of it. But I tell you what, I've seen his cars, and it's, you know, we're talking about Ford Mark 1s, Ford Mark 2s, RS 2000s, you know, all the Cosworths and stuff like that, and they're absolutely completely restored to mint condition.
They're worth a lot of money.
Just like I could just sit here forever. And he actually admitted to me, he says, I often get my tea and I actually sit in my car and have my tea. And it's like, as well. I don't want to be in the house. I just want to sit in my car and have my tea. So you know, that's a fantastic. You know, these are wee stories. I mean, have you guys got any stories about, you know, people you've had in the past that you could remember? I know I'm putting you on the spot doing this.
I think there's a lot of drivers that influence a move, like you say, obviously, whether it's relocating for a job, whether it's to be back near a family, whether it's people doing a first-time buy, whether it's a couple, maybe want to start a family, or just somebody on their own. In terms of off the cuff, trying to think of An example, well, I will use myself. I mean, I didn't need to move house. My house is fine, but I could do maybe, I want off-street parking, better off-street parking. I want a wee bit more living space. So it's like I'm trying to ground myself, like, I don't need to move, but I want to, so I will eventually.
This has become a desire rather than an actual need.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I've had a few people with camper vans. So as much as the house was ideal, perfect, there wasn't any room for the camper van and the car. Yeah. So they've had to keep looking. And it's a shame, really, but they need space for their camper van. That's part of their life.
Yeah,
so,
and that's a lot of things that will tick a box. So hence the reason why when we do pre-portal launches and we do live property viewings, instead of actually just doing video, we actually do talk. Yeah. So we talk and engage with the audience at the same time. But that is deliberately designed to appeal to the people that would otherwise be missed by a video. Yeah. You know, because everybody thinks video is the be-all and end-all, but there's certain degrees and levels of videos that respond to certain audiences over different platforms in different markets.
Yeah, the interaction is key.
And that's the key for everything. I mean, you've exactly hit the nail on the head here, Richard. But not every buyer needs to move. Some of them simply want to move. Mm-hmm. One might like the idea of a new renovation project. Another might be looking for a change in scenery. Someone else might find themselves with a sudden chance to move up the property ladder due to a pay rise, a promotion, or inheritance. I mean, what's our advice for that? You know, do we just go with that? I mean, I'm often compelled when I sit in front of some people to say, I wouldn't be doing it. And here's the reasons I wouldn't be doing it. Because of these things. And for me, from my point of view, I look back to where I was and when I was younger, and I felt at that point in time, if somebody had said that to me, I would have been a bit offended, but also I would have thought about it. And it might have made me think about it or make different decisions in my journey for my house buying process. And it might have benefited me later on as a result of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and inheritance is something that we see quite a lot. And I think people's first instinct is, I'm going to buy a bigger house. And it's maybe not always the answer. I mean, there's a lot of things you could do with money rather than buying this big fancy house that maybe you're still going to have a mortgage on. And when really you could clear the mortgage you've got maybe and then have money to invest, or do you know what I mean? Do a lot more with it. So yeah, I mean, it's not always the right thing to necessarily move. And inheritance is one of the ones that we see that with. I mean, Anne-Marie, you've got a good move story. I mean, you come up for down south.
Yeah, from London to Luton to Scotland, further and further up. But yeah, I mean, we just decided we just want a change of scenery. We were familiar with Scotland. We've got friends in Scotland, friends in Wales. These are two places that we, just went on long weekend breaks and things. And then one day we just thought, we really like Scotland in particular, actually. So and we've got friends here. So yeah, we just sold up and moved up to Scotland. We just took the plunge and we've never regretted it. It's coming up to nearly 3 years now and never looked back. I mean, the thing is, we had a whole social scene in London and everything, and it was great. We had a hell of a great time, but we're actually quite happy now, just sort of like be chilled. If we need to go back down to London, we will. Then we come back home. We love it up here, actually.
What a lifestyle move.
Yeah, different lifestyle. Yeah. Don't regret it at all. And we just wanted to. We didn't need to, but we wanted.
Dare I say to you, Anne-Marie, welcome to God's country.
Thank you very much.
And the great thing is, you're exactly right. You can go anywhere in the world if you really want to, and then you can come back. It's like, for people, it's like, Las Vegas. It's like, well, I'll go to Las Vegas for 2 weeks and I'll come back to Scotland.
Yeah.
The job done. Yeah. And it's like, probably a classic example is like cars as well. It's like, I would love a Lamborghini. All right, okay, I'll hire it for 2 weeks and then I'll hand it back. I'll save myself a fortune.
Yeah.
And the depreciation I would get for took out the garage and then decided I didn't really want it.
Yeah.
So as well as looking motivation matchmaking, it also means ensuring that anyone coming to view your home is actually able to buy it. That's one of the important processes in the matchmaking process. Do they have a mortgage agreed in principle? Are they a cash buyer? Often people say they're cash buyers, but we have to probe a bit more because they're cash buyers only because they've got a mortgage in place. That is not a cash buyer. Cash buyer, you've got the money in the bank. You're ready to go. You're probably in rented accommodation. Cash and mortgage we define as well. So cash buyer and mortgage, deposit and mortgage, or mortgage only, maybe a 95, which will be announced this coming week, next week, in the budget. That'll be 95% mortgages the government's probably going to guarantee. Yeah. That's on the horizon. So these are all things we all have to sift through in the beginning when a buyer inquires, in order to make sure the process we're sending round to someone's house, they're in a position to actually proceed, especially now with the Scottish Government's guidelines and the fact that you really have to be in a position to proceed to do anything. Yeah. So is there anything else that might affect ability for somebody to move? You know, that's another thing that we'll probe as well. You know, will it affect, will there be anything else that will affect their ability to move? In fact, these factors are all essential when pairing people with property, meaning more relevant viewers for buyers, viewings for buyers, and fewer wasted ones for our vendors or our sellers. That's it. I mean, I always say to everybody, it's more quality than quantity. I mean, you know, when people go, oh, so-and-so said they can get 10 people through my door next week to see my property, that's all very well. But are the 10 people actually going to buy that property? That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
You'll probably find out of these 10, maybe one person might make an effort, and that's about it. So I would rather have less hassle and better quality and more of an advantage at the end for somebody to actually make an offer than actually just have every man and their dog through the door.
Yeah,
you've got to do. I mean, these are things about matchmaking as well. You've got to do a house up. We could be here forever. We start talking about this subject. Yeah. You know, it's like then we've got to get the house ready. We've got to get prepared for the viewing and all the rest of it. So that's why you really want quantity rather than quality rather than quantity, because quantity is constantly keeping you on your toes and keeping you stressed, having to keep your house in perfect condition all the time.
Yeah,
and this brings me nicely on to the subject of one of the things that we love doing is the dream weaving.
Yeah,
encouraging buyers to look at the home's current layout and towards its actual potential. We can create the excitement of the transformation. That's ultimately what we are doing. We're selling a dream. We're selling a lifestyle. You know, is that your experience? I mean, you take a lot of people around at weekends, don't you, Anne-Marie?
Yes.
I mean, you know, I don't know of any other agent that has their estate agents at work during the week consistently do the viewings at night and at weekends as well as work during the week. They usually send someone else to open a door and say, when any questions asked, they go, I don't know, ask the office on Monday. But we don't do that, do we? That's a unique thing, I think, that we do. So what's your experience at weekends? Do you think people are more respondent and more responsive to you because you know more about the property and you know more about them?
Yeah, so it's a lot better for me to do it, or for us to do it ourselves, instead of just paying someone to open a door. You know, at the weekends, these are people that, you know, they can't do viewings during the week because they're at work, only weekends and evenings. So I try to accommodate that because they need to be able to move as well. You know, I will accommodate that if I can. And I find that those sometimes are the buyers that, I'm not saying the ones in the week aren't serious, but the ones that are working during the day and taking time out of their weekend to, you know, those are the ones that seem to be more motivated and more serious, you know. That's in my experience anyway, you know, but I have no problem accommodating that at all because I understand what it's like to work during the week. And agents just don't do weekends and evenings. I've seen that myself when I moved to Scotland. Me and my husband had to take time off to do a viewing, you know. They just don't do the weekends. But yeah, I have no problem doing that at all.
I mean, sometimes, actually, quite often, a property that seems first unsuitable could allow someone to create their perfect home. Not everyone gets their ready-made ideal, but though through imagination and even a pencil and paper to sketch out an idea, we can actually show how the home actually fits into what they want, even if it doesn't fit right now. I mean, that is the dream building bit, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I always see where you could maybe knock a wall down, or if it's if it's a property with a lot of land where you could maybe put an extension on. I know all these things cost money, but sometimes if you've got a certain budget, you could maybe go under your budget and use the money you're saving to create your dream home, putting your own extension on, a conservatory even, which isn't as much as a whole, you know, an extension. It's still another room, you know.
Building that dream, it's letting people see. Richard, what's your thoughts on that?
Sometimes that's probably the better way forward, because I mean, like I say, people always have in their head what they want to buy, and they have their dream house with all their specifications and things, but you never ever find it. And sometimes, like you say, if they're getting something at the right price where they've still got money left over, they could actually create their dream home rather than finding it ready made, because that is very difficult.
Yeah.
And in my mind, what I do is I have a list of people that I know are looking for homes right now. This is how I think. So when I bring a house on, or I go around to see somebody, I immediately start thinking, oh, so-and-so like this, and they'll like this, and they'll like this, and I know they'll like this. So I've got it all pre-planned exactly how I could show this house to someone. And I could probably get somebody around there at the actual time when I'm sitting with the customer and actually do a viewing there and then say, this is how it goes. Have we got a deal? And the job is done. You know, that's the reality. Sometimes bureaucracy and paperwork get in my road, what I really want, and to achieve. So it's all about building a dream. It's not, I mean, Phil says this really eloquently. So let's look at what Phil says. It's more than just items. There is a feeling, an atmosphere, the way the sun hits and the ambience of the property as well. That's the whole thing. That's the dream weaving.
Totally agree with that.
The point. People do not buy houses, they buy homes.
Yes.
And it's our job to present that with things like, you know, it is video and it is professional photographs, but more importantly, it's creative content. It's actually, rather than just doing a boring old, this is a 3-bedroom house and it's got a bathroom, it's got a kitchen, and these are the dimensions. We add in key phrases into our descriptions in order to be quite emotive, in order to pull the right person in for that property, in order to get the right result, which is ultimately more than home report value. Let's be honest. That's our job. That's why people employ us, to get significantly more money than the home report actually says, because the home report reflects a historical position of other properties sold. Market value is what we're after, reflects what it's worth to someone right now. And that is called building the dream. And that's what makes that's what gets that ultimate market value. That's how I see it. You know, is that your thoughts yourselves, guys?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, Jim. And people fixate, like you say, on the home report price, but that is obviously, that's the value based on historical prices and comparisons, whereas the actual sale price is the current market value. And I think that's something always to keep in mind. And I think to touch on what you say about obviously our videos and the interaction, and I think even much more now, obviously, because we depend so much on virtual tours and virtual walk-rounds. I think how we commentate on that and interact and give it that bit, and do you know what I mean, walking around open cupboards and showing them actually properly around the property gives them a better idea on screen, and obviously displays the property to them at that stage before they actually walk around, and gives them that feeling and maybe creates that emotion before they're actually even through the door. Yeah,
absolutely. So, I mean, even talking about that, I've done virtual viewings for lots of different reasons. They're too far away, or COVID, or, you know, all sorts of reasons. But I've done a couple of virtual viewings, and we've managed to sell a property just on the back of a virtual tour, you know, because it's more in depth. You know, as you said, you're opening cupboards, you know, you're sort of showing what maybe the photographs in a brochure doesn't really show, or a video. As lovely as the videos are, we're just making it more personal. You know, they might want to see something again, or they may want me to, you know, point out the window. They want to have a look at the view. It's almost like they're there, well, virtual, you know. So
it's building that trust as well, and between you and the buyer, and the fact that there's never a point where I'll sell somebody a house that they don't need or they don't want, and purely because I think I could sell them it. That's not what our job is to do. Our job is to matchmake and build the dream with someone in order to get them to buy the house they really want. We know what they want by what they tell us, but sometimes they don't know what they want themselves until we deliver it to them in the way that they want to hear it. I mean, ultimately, it is about where it is in proximity to the beach, to the golf course, if that's if that's their thing. It's the lifestyle they'll enjoy as a result. It's the lifestyle, more importantly, their children will enjoy as a result. It's all these things that make up that fundamental difference. I mean, it's also, could a house be extended to provide accommodation for family needs in the location that they love? Presenting a home that's significantly below someone's buying power could free them to reconfigure or expand that actual home as well, and save money ultimately. You know, so there is an option to do that. And perhaps the loft conversion would be a classic to give them an extra bedroom that they crave from their kids. Perhaps even when we go round to see PC someday, it's like, well, wait a minute, you could probably just extend here. You don't need to sell.
Yeah.
You know, ultimately that's what it is. The large garden might provide space for a family home, family-sized dining kitchen. I tell you what, though, the one I've got coming on Lindsay Berwick next week. Woo-hoo-hoo! I'm excited about this one. The garden, the additional land they've got, you could build another house in. You're not going to get to build another house, but they've got planning permission for another extension on top of what they've got already.
Yeah.
And I thought, geez, are you trying to build the Thunderbirds house? Because this thing's big. This is a beautiful house overlooking the country to the countryside to the rear. Anyway, well, let's get on the subject. Other creative thinking might look at whether a larger living space could be split into create separate study and a work for home as well. You know, often we talked about it this week with someone where they had the big double bedroom, but they had 2 windows, and ultimately you could actually just put a stud partition in the middle and have 2 bedrooms coming off the hall. So it's another way to adapt for that extra living space. So that house, which was a lot less in money, could just be a stud partition could be stuck up in that room and actually create the extra bedroom that they craved in the first place, and saving them a lot of money. So again, it's that dream weaving. It's the creative thinking that goes into that process in order to do that. Could that wall be removed? Could they have this open plan living that they crave as well? You know, is it a supporting wall? Is it not a supporting wall? Can we get somebody in to talk about that? So we have experts that will discuss that with them. I actually referred Liam Anderson yesterday, the architect, to someone because they were thinking about how they were going to do stuff. And I said, well, perfect. Liam will be able to help you with that because I know the ideas, but Liam's on a different level because that's his job he does day in, day out. So by encouraging buyers to look beyond the home's current layout and towards its future potential as an estate agent, it can create the excitement and the possibility of the transformation. And by making the introductions to local architects, contractors, builders, a project that might have felt too large can suddenly feel more achievable. I've had that with people down south. They've come up to the East Nuke. They've said, look, I want it, I'm keen on buying this, but I know it needs a lot of work. And to be honest, I don't know anybody up here at all, so it immediately puts them off. Hey, no bother. I've got all the people that can help you. It's this guy, it's that guy, and I'll give you all the numbers. You can speak to them, and they'll be able to put that all together for you. How can I do that? Because I've used them all before. Yeah. We've used them all before. We know all these people. We trust these people. And it's the only people I'll ever refer to anyone else as people I can trust to do the job to our standards. And that really comes down to it. 151 reviews giving us a 98% approval rating means our standards are possibly a little bit higher than everyone else. And that's our customers that say that. So let's get on to the next subject and we'll have a wee chat about that. And it is market monitoring. Yeah. Photographs and descriptions are only the beginning. The agent might stay on top of the market to ensure your sales strategy stays right in the process. That's really what it comes down to. So market monitoring, photographs are really the thing. If the market rises, it may become apparent that you can achieve significantly more for your property. So what's your thought on market monitoring? What do you do, Richard? I mean, what do you do day to day for market monitoring?
Yeah, I think it's so easy just for any agent to list a property and bust people through the door. But I think the whole marketing process, and I think there's different marketing strategies that suit different sellers and things as well, depending on the property and where it's located. And I think there's so much behind the scenes. It's not just pictures, put it online and wait for the phone to ring, like it says in the article. There's a lot more behind the scenes. I mean, from a lettings aspect, obviously I spend a lot of time. We in a training were asked to write down a list of things that we do from day to day, and it was well over 100 just in the listing process of one property, and just even just the smallest things to the biggest things. And I think as well, there's so many different platforms and methods of getting the property out there, whether it be social media. It's not just obviously the portals now with some pictures, and like I say, obviously our interactive tours and how we guide people through the property and things as well. I mean, there's just so much different aspects from it. And I think, Jim, you said that to me for years about this proverbial duck gliding across the water. I mean, and that's a really good way to describe how we work day to day. I mean, a big part of our job is out there in in the neighbourhood and interacting with people, and that's great. But that during that process, we're obviously listening to people and putting in place what we think is the right strategy to market their property. And
it's the market. I mean, it's understanding the market as well and knowing how to advise people what to do next.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, ultimately the one that comes up every single time just now about the market monitoring is the property market going to crash? Hell no, it is not. And I'll tell you why. 2,800 properties were available for sale in Fife when the credit crunch was going at the peak. We have about 600 properties available in Fife now, over every single estate agent available for sale. Last year, 12 months ago, when we were in a boom, there was 1,200 properties for sale across Fife. And we've got half of that now. All the websites are indicating as well. Rightmove is up 37% in activity. We're up 54% in activity. So anybody that says the market's going to crash is quite delusional. At this point in time, there's no indicator to suggest that at all. So that's the key importance of being able to advise your customer about whether they should hold, whether they should expect more money, or whether they should actually expect to get lower. And it's understanding those markets and understanding these key statistics in the background that will enable you and enable us to advise customers of the right decisions moving forward. And I say just now in some areas, in Leiden, for example, every single property in Leiden should be going for more than home report value.
Yeah.
Every single property in Glenrothes should be going for more than home report value. Every single property in the East Nuke should be going for significantly more than home report value, because their market is 120% of what's coming onto the market. So in other words, if 100 properties come on, 120 properties are getting sold. That's the amount of activity on that now for the East Nuke.
Do you know, I had
100%, and Glenrothes is 100%. St Andrews poor relation now, sitting at 83%. So, you know, it's not for us though. I'll be honest, and I'll say it. I'm quite honest about that, and you know, I'm just saying it. And the reality is, 100% of the properties we've come on in St Andrews, we've sold 100% of these properties. But right across the board, if you look at the Rightmove statistics for every agent, 100% of the properties have come to the market. 83% of the properties have sold. So there's still agents right in St Andrews, have got properties in St Andrews that are still sitting there not selling. And I'm scratching my head thinking, hello, that 17% of people that aren't selling should be looking for another agent at this point in time. They should not be sitting saying, but it's St Andrews that will sell. That's completely delusional. But that to me is understanding the market.
Yeah, and I think
monitoring it all the time.
What I was going to say was that there was a client I was out to recently and obviously discussing about the market and obviously talking about just obviously what you've been covering there in terms of area and how the performance in each area and things. And the response was that obviously you're very positive about the market and just now, and I've spoke to other people and they're not. And he was really, and obviously what their view on the market was, and unfortunately it's just wasn't accurate to me. But
do you know why that is? Because they go Yeah, that's my opinion of the market based on, I'm just gauging the wind. That's ultimately it. They've looked at no statistics at all about it. Because if that's the case, and you ask anybody, for anybody that's watching, the next time you ask an agent, you know, what's the position of the market? And if they're downplaying the market or if they're upplaying the market, ask them how they came to that opinion. Where is the facts that back up what they said? Because I'll tell you, a lot of them just open their mouth and let their belly rumble.
Yeah,
that's the sad reality. And because people see them in a position as an estate agent because they've got it on their business card, they believe them.
They believe them. Yeah.
It's like, my God,
that's right.
I always talk about it with wealthy people as well. It's like you've got a brand new Ferrari sitting on the drive, and everybody goes, "I'm going to listen to you. What are you doing?" It's like, well, how much are you actually worth? What is your wealth really? Or is it the fact that you hired that Ferrari on credit and tick? And you're living at a different level and you're still broke. That's the reality. And it's the same sort of thing when it comes to an estate agent. If you ask somebody's opinion, make sure they've got the facts to back it up. That's what market monitoring is all about. That's why we do it. And that's why we spend a lot of time doing it in the background. I mean, both scenarios require constant study of the market. And then from demand to the sentiment and then also sales. And the communication is essential to agree the best course of action to keep you assured and your interests are being looked after. That's ultimately it. That's the only reason we do it. Well, I do it just because I'm geeky, that's all. I just like doing these type of things. I've even got the Zoom right next to me here for tomorrow's market roundup. And I start to look at these numbers every single day. Did you know in the last 12 months that the market in Zoopla went up 4.3% and the demand for homes is up 12% year on year? But we'll talk about that tomorrow night at I'll plug for my weekly update at 7 o'clock. So join me there and I'll give you a weekly update on the market. So if you're switching agents, this is be honest. I mean, equally as well, it doesn't always go right for us in the beginning. Some customers just don't want to listen. Don't know why. It's like they're delusional, maybe, but they don't want to listen to what we've got to say sometimes. So you can't help them. You can't help someone that doesn't want to listen and doesn't want to take your advice. Some people just think they know everything better than everyone else when other people are the experts in their field. That's really what it comes down to. But in the majority of occasions, we're always right because we understand the market completely and what we're doing. So if you're switching agents, you have the opportunity for a whole new strategy and to completely revitalize your move. There is indicators when you switch to a different agent as well. Rightmove and Zoopla, Prime Location, Google, and all the rest of it treat it as a completely different new property. They don't actually have the historical information they've held with everybody else before actually gets put aside. If you wait for a certain amount of time, or you know what to do in order to put this property on the right way to get rid of that history, there's all key indicators to do that. That's again something else that you have to look in the background, the market monitoring. So sometimes an upward tweak of just £5 will make a difference. It's amazing how many people are still in this concept of £995.
Yeah.
The 99 pence Woolies mentality. Yeah. A £1 or a 99 pence, well, 99 pence. That does not apply to estate agency anymore. We have something called the internet. Hello, it appeared all these years ago. And people shop in bandings, 10,000 bandings. So in order to appear first on a mobile phone at the top of a search list, you have to be on the 10,000 banding because that's where people search up to, and that's where people search from. They don't have a choice to go to 999 pence. They don't have a choice to go to there. No. So you appear here first. If you do a 10,000 banding, you appear both sides of the audience as well. So you have two audiences you appeal to, and not just the one, because you've only gone below the 10,000 banding. So you don't appear in the one above. So that's another way of market monitoring and making sure your home price will fall in the right bands to get the right result in terms of what you're doing. So any final thoughts on that, guys, before we move on to our next subject?
Yeah, I think the band thing's quite a good point. I think if for whatever reason at some point during a sale, if you're having to amend the price to fit obviously with the current market, then trying to explain that to the client. Obviously sometimes it doesn't always get through to them, and obviously you need to kind of explain it properly, like you just did there, Jim. That was quite a good example as where it will land in the price at its price point, or position it on the market so that it can be obviously picked up by obviously two different audiences.
You get your price wrong and you've lost half your market straight away.
Well, that's right. Some vendors don't want to listen because as far as they're concerned, their property is worth this much, and they're not listening to us. They're not going to get other audiences as well, but they don't understand that it's a mindset.
Yeah,
I think I qualify that statement though when I say you get your price wrong, you've lost half your market. What I mean is you get your price wrong for the internet, for how the internet understands it, not for what you think it is. Because a lot of people, I've got a lot of agents out there, and I know them because I know the personal experience. The home report's maybe 100,000 or 200,000, and then they'll say, "Oh, put it on at 190." It's like, okay, but that's not the type of strategy I'm talking about pricing. There's other strategies that will tick all the boxes of social media. It'll tick all the boxes of Rightmove, Prime Location, Zoopla, Google. They'll love us for it. They push us out on organic reach as a result of it because we know how to tickle the engine, if that makes sense. If that's a word you would use, woo.
I know what you mean.
So let's talk about hand holding. So have you ever noticed how you were never far from a sensationalist story about the future of the property market? This is what we talked about, whether it's a pandemic, a change in interest rates, or a rise and fall in number of sales, rarely does a week go by without a commentary or dramatic predictions. So the one thing that does is the hand-holding process, doesn't it? I mean, the news is one thing, but scaremongering can severely impact a buyer's confidence and lead to someone withdrawing from a purchase. We had no withdrawals when the pandemic came in the first time round. We had loads of people looking to withdraw, but we kept a hold of all these people because we knew exactly what to say, because we were completely prepared for the process. We knew it by what everybody else was saying, so we were able to circumvent that and combat that before it even actually happened. So it's understanding that in the hand-holding process, regardless of the financial consequences, forcing chains to collapse and leaving multiple moves and shreds. So again, that's another thing we do. We make sure chains, especially from the English market, because obviously that's where it's renowned for chains falling through. We might make sure that process is kept together. If we can't keep it together, we also line up another buyer just in case in the background. You know, a lot of people say, "Oh, take my full sale." I spoke about it yesterday. The person, one person in one of the places in Newborough, for example, their house is sold, so they took the sold sign down. And I went, "Whoa, no. Do not take the sold sign down, because we still get inquiries from people saying that if that falls through, I like that house. I've seen the video tour. I really want a chance of getting it." So you keep the board up until it's over the line. Remember, there is no profit until the money is in the bank.
Yeah, I mean, we've got so many
control saying from my financial days.
There's such a lot of properties that we've got sold on the market. We've got file notes if their sale falls through, refer back to, and we've got people in rings who are prepared to pick it up if the sale doesn't go ahead. So, and they all come from the advertising after the sale as well.
That's right. We get them all the time. You know, they understand it's not available anymore, but if anything happens, please call me. You know,
what do we do when a buyer has negative thoughts about things? Anne-Marie, what do you do when a buyer has negative thoughts? How do you turn that around?
Well, I just try to sort of point out the positive. It depends what it is. If it's a negative thought about maybe the size of a property, for example, that's when I start talking about knocking walls down or extending. If it's negative about maybe the way the house is facing, if it's not a south-facing garden, for example, you know, I will try to turn that around. I know you can't do much about that, but I would just point out all the good things to outweigh that, you know, with the property, you know, the lifestyle, what's nearby, you know, the school's only around the corner.
It's bringing people back to their original thoughts, because we've asked the questions in the first place when the buyer has inquired about what it is they really want from a property. And actually then using that to reflect back to them to say, this property has all these aspects that you asked for in the beginning. And then they go, I forgot. I just got so fixated and focused on this one single thing, or this news bulletin about the market's going to crash. We had that. I had people loads of times, you know, saying the market's going to crash, so I'm not going to buy it now. I'm going to wait. Guess what? We're going to another mini boom.
Yeah, well, I
mean, the person that was waiting for the market to crash, it ain't going to crash.
Yeah, we've went from Brexit to COVID, and and constantly people on the phone. What am I going to do about Brexit? How's it going to affect my sale? Can I put it on the market now? And then we went right into COVID, and it just all started again. And it's all speculation and hearsay.
It's these constant things that run through people's minds about what's going to happen. It's what could happen, what maybe happen, what will happen. It's like, guys, there's only one event that can happen, and that's what actually is going to unfold in front of you in your future. So stop thinking about what might happen, what maybe happen, and actually just understand and go with the flow and let it take where you want. If you want to buy the house and it suits your need for the next 15, 20 years, it makes no difference if the market crashes next year. Because in 15, 20 years, the price has recovered to where it was before. Exactly. It's completely irrelevant and immaterial. But the problem is the social network around about them exacerbates that situation and puts them in almost an incubator where it grows bigger and bigger and bigger in their mind, to a point where they get so frustrated that they go, I don't know what to do now. Almost analysis paralysis for some people. And it's understanding those needs. When a buyer gets so much negativity, it's understandable for them to have second thoughts, but that doesn't mean that every doom-laden story in the media needs to be followed or treated as gospel. The media is out to sell papers or get you to watch the media. They'll do everything in their power to get you, because negative news sells.
Yeah.
So they're always going to say things like that. They're always going to say things that will get you to click on their story so their adverts are seen. They'll get, to engage with their audience. You don't see, I mean, as often I get up in the morning, I put the news on, and I just switch it off straight away, because I think, what about all the people that are relevant in this world? Why are we talking about somebody's marriage?
Is that you back on Kimmy?
No, I don't know. But that's the sort of things you get on the news. It's like, why are we talking about that? Is there no more important things to talk about in the national news than somebody's marriage? They're just like everybody else. My friend Jim Stevenson used to say, hey, they're just like everybody else. They go to the toilet like everybody else. That's the reality.
Exactly.
So buyers who withdraw can come to regret their decision soon afterwards, only to discover their dream home was snapped up by someone else. We've had it this week. You know, we're investors as well. It's like they're no in there quick enough. And we've had to go back to them and say, look, for God's sake, slap. You need to be in there straight away. You need to be in there on social media before it even gets the right move. So as soon as you see the pre-launch, or as soon as we tell you it's coming to market, you need to come and view now in order to make a decision if you want this property. We're selling properties before they get to market, people. If you want them, you need to register with us. You need to keep in touch. You need to follow our Facebook pages, or you'll miss out completely. This is the new way. This is how it's going to evolve. This is how things are happening. This is what's happened exactly. It's accelerated the process for the home shopping as well. So social media is accelerating the process as well for home buying. People are now looking at the agents on social media, and they're jumping in straight away at the beginning when the pre-portal launch is done. Anyway, so it's up to the estate agents to help them remember all the good things about what they wanted. Even when positivity reigns, the days before exchanging contracts are the reality when a commitment bites. When it's time to put your money down and sign on the dotted line, people can take a deep breath and ask, is this the home they really want? So it's up to an estate agent to maintain that momentum and enthusiasm throughout the sales process, of staying in touch and noticing signs of doubt and taking them through that doubt. Many sales are saved with a simple and respectful, open conversation. I always liken it to like Phil Spencer, you know, when he sits down with people on location, and has that open conversation with them. This is our approach. This is what we do, and we do it very, very well. And you know, that's what you do as well, Anne-Marie, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. You know, if I feel like someone might be having doubts or second thoughts, you know, it's all about that open conversation. What is it that they wanted in the first place when it first started? Look where they are now. They're nearly over the line. You know, do they really want to start all over again? You know, with another property. This, you know, it's just a mindset, and I can understand and appreciate people getting nervous. It is a big asset. It's a lot of money involved, but you know, it's just a matter of having that open conversation with them. And
it's the classic, do you really want to start all over again, only to get to the same point?
Yeah.
Because that's what you're doing. You just go get to the same point, and you're going to come up against the same hurdle that we've just discussed now. That you're not wanting, you've had reservations about this one. It's exactly the same thing. I mean, you have that as well, Richard, don't you?
Yeah, and I think, like you say, obviously mindset's a big part of it, and I think to sit down and have a very frank and transparent conversation with somebody is. A lot of people don't want to do it, but when you do have that conversation with a client, they appreciate it more, because then it makes them realise where they need to be and what they need to do to get there. And that's the key.
And it takes us nicely to the problem-solving position. And you know, while it's a conveyancer's job to carry out the legal work, you know, it's often a estate agent with a local knowledge who provides the solutions to the problems. That's that resonates a lot with me. It's like it's when they go to the conveyancing process, everybody thinks our job's finished. It's nothing like that at all, is it? You know, what's your experience of that, Anne-Marie?
No, our job definitely isn't finished, because they still contact us when they have any like concerns, and sometimes I think, okay, that really should be the solicitor, but they feel more comfortable with us. We're able to advise them better sometimes, not because we're doing a better job than a solicitor. It's a completely different job, but we're the ones that are holding their hands, if you like, taking them through the whole process, from when they make an inquiry to when they sign and complete. We're there for the whole duration. We take them through all of that.
Through that sale progression
until they sign.
Help them problem solve until we get to the point of conclusion of missives with the solicitors.
Yes.
Sometimes, I mean, we've had people come back to us and say, "Oh, I've never heard from a solicitor since," and it's like, right, well, and then you have to guide them through, and then obviously connect up the dots between them and their conveyancing side to make sure that things go ahead as they should.
You often get solicitors. My solicitor's not returning my calls.
Yeah.
My solicitor doesn't feel they can get an answer from the buyer solicitor.
Yeah.
You know, you often get that as well. And it's like, okay, leave it to me. Leave it to me. Look, I understand the solicitor has a busy job. They've got to get lots of transactions over the line. It's not just the normal days. They're in boom times. They've got huge amounts of back work of property. Yeah. So I'll give them a quick call. I'll make sure the buyer is in a position, the buyer understands, because often the buyer doesn't realise because the buyer solicitor hasn't told them. Yeah. You know, there's something they need to get over the line. They're not aware of what they need to do next, because some solicitors are still on the quill and ink. You know, they have to send out letters for everything. And it's like, for God's sake, don't send a letter, because email is a really good port of call now. It is the communication format as well now. I know they think it's a legally binding thing, and if there's anything's happened, but email is still legally binding as well. Yeah. So for me, just send me emails about what's going on. I mean, I've got 3 houses to get over the line for me for buy to let, because I'm an investor, and you know, my conveyancer now has understood that they need to send me emails. Sending it in the mail is not an option for me, because it could take 3 or 4 days for me to make a decision. That's and if we're trying to get the entry date I'm trying to get, I need that quicker in order to do that. And I've made them understand that. So they've actually sent me the email, but they still feel comfortable backing it up with a letter.
It's fine if they want to back up with a letter, but I think, email is definitely the...
But it's the problem-solving process. And then it's also, once you've spoken to the buyer, it's then, will you speak to your solicitor and get your solicitor to speak to our solicitor in order to get the answer? Because you still have to keep the solicitors in the loop. Yeah. Because if the solicitors are not kept in the loop, something fundamental that you discussed between the seller and the buyer is missing from that loop. So you have to make sure that you then convey what we've discussed back to the seller solicitor to say, look, we've spoken to the buyer direct this time. This is what they've said. So you should get the call from their solicitor, or you can call their solicitor and follow that. So again, it's making sure that's all joined up in that process in order to make that happen. Because I tell you what, the worst thing is the most it's like an unforgivable sin for a solicitor, for an estate agent to cut them out of the equation. Yeah, and actually not tell them that they've been communicating with the buyer or the seller, and when they're now involved in the transaction. And and for me as well, you guys, I actually put I say this all the time religiously to you guys, that this has to be the case. You have to keep the solicitor informed all the time of what's going on, because one key component could be missed in that whole transaction, which means the whole sale could fall through on a fallout. On just a simple fallout. So that's why it's important to keep that process in place and make sure the problem solving goes on in the background. Yeah. I mean, when you think about the logic, there's no requirement for conveyancers to be in the neighbourhood. And if you're selling one area and buying another, your conveyancer will be a stranger to at least one of the locations, remember. So when disparities or irregularities arise, it's the agent's local expertise that can go a very long way in that process. That's us. That's exactly what we do. So funny old-fashioned clauses might have been solved on other nearby sales or boundary lines with shared rights before. I've got that on my own. You know, we had a strip of land when we bought our house, just a wee tiny strip, a slither. It went up when it was done. And on the land registry, it showed a certain meterage, but on ours, we were just that wee bit bigger. So we had to go to the original person that they bought the house from, or the land from, and get them to sign it over to say that they were okay and they wouldn't take recourse against that. And then we had to buy an indemnity policy to make sure if anything happened, we would be indemnified, and we'd have an insurance policy to underwrite that to fight it legally. And that's that expertise that I now carry with myself, that I can advise other people of the same process. This is a combination of everything and the experience that we've learned over all the years of what we do. 30 years in the property industry, and I've probably bought about 100 houses myself over that time, gives me a huge experience and backlog of it no one else can have, combined with, when you think about it, my experience as a financial director and a financial controller in the industry, helping run several companies, goes a long way to making sure that I understand the person's needs more than just a simple estate agent can.
Yeah. that mixture of personal and professional experience is invaluable, really.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Often the people that make it are in the estate agency, or the top estate agents, are actually professionals in a previous life and something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no requirement. I mean, funny old-fashioned clauses, as I said, can be a fundamental difference. Estate agents are also the ones who challenge the valuations of mortgage lenders. That's another thing as well. You know, we've had a few just now and again where a mortgage lender will come back and say, well, we thought it was a bit less. And it's like, no, it's not less, because this is like the thing about cutting people off before you get to that journey. So classic example, when a surveyor is sent round to one of our properties to survey it on behalf of the bank, we're prepared already with all the comparables for the surveyor before they actually go round to the property.
That's
and
right.
say, this is why it's still worth this amount of money.
Yeah.
Or we're so they then don't have that awkwardness of actually, because they don't know the area. Remember, some surveyors come from Edinburgh, some surveyors on the banks come from Stirling because they're big surveyors and they come and look at the properties. They don't know the local area, they don't understand the prices. So if we can present the prices to them for behalf of the bank, then the job's done. So that's probably one of the other experiences. It goes towards that as well. I mean, you guys as well. What's your thoughts on this problem solving?
Yeah, I think problem solving is such a big part, and I mean, there's all different aspects that, like as you say about obviously the mortgage valuations. There's one recently, I mean, without obviously divulging too much information, where I've got an investor or a gentleman who's buying it from a family member because the property has sat and wouldn't sell for a while, so he's going to buy it and do it as a buy-to-let and whatever, but it's been valued less than what it was on the market. So obviously I've put him to course to challenge that, of course, because I don't agree. So yeah, it's just things like that for day to day, there's an array of things, problem solving, that, like you say, you deal with through either personal experience or professional experience, and without that, it's quite hard to advise people. And I think to implement your own experiences, like you expressed there, Jim, with your own property, is just the best way to kind of advise somebody for personal experience. That's the best way to learn as well.
Absolutely. Anne-Marie, yourself, problem solving. Have you seen a lot of this and having to do it? Oh, Anne-Marie's got a connection.
You guys hear me? Sorry, you just froze there. I just saw a blank screen. Sorry, could you just repeat that? Everyone disappeared.
So problem solving, we're talking about problem solving, and we're talking about, I mean, what's been your personal experience of problem solving? Have you got any examples that you would have?
Well, yeah, I mean, problem solving, I mean, if it's a personal experience, I mean, I've had personal experience with like buying and selling myself. So that's, you know, those are some things that I can bring with me to do this job. You know, I've had someone, you know, I've had a chain fall down on me. You
often come to me as well, though, and say, you know, well, we've got this person and that person, this is their situation, and I say that's what to do. So I mean, even if you don't have the experience, and you know, it's about knowing the experience about the person to go to with the experience.
Yeah,
It's the classic example about the architects as well. It's like, I'm no architect, but I know exactly who to go to get the right answer.
Yeah,
I mean, we've got a shed, basically a big shed, which could possibly be converted into a house, which is sitting on the beach, basically, and the East Neuk. And I've got an architect working on it now to see if we can get it over the line as a holiday home or as an actual house. And that land will go from being worth 20,000 to probably 150,000.
Yeah. So we've always got people that we can go to if we can't solve it ourselves. So yeah. When it comes to problem solving.
Yeah. I mean, we could be here forever talking about this, but the reality is that's the hour up, guys. Already.
Subject. There's a lot to speak about.
Maybe I just talk too much.
No, there's a lot to talk about. We could go on we could sit here all night.
There's fantastic comments. I mean, Phil's made a lot of good comments there. I mean, phone is good for communication. Often texts are not a great thing. Email sometimes can be misinterpreted. So you've got to use the right form of communication in the right circumstances. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, hopefully that's given you a good insight, anybody into a good insight in terms of what goes on in the day-to-day behind the scenes. But more importantly, you know, it's the whole picture. So if anybody wants any more information, please feel free to contact us on these channels, message us, or you know, get in touch with us via email, via messenger, via text, whatever it is. And that's it. And until next week, guys. Bye-bye for now.
Okay.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.